Hi, this is Stu Turgel, your host for The PHOENIX File, a weekly news magazine and community conversation with the people and programs making a positive impact on the quality of life in our community. For more than 50 years, SCORE has been helping small businesses get off the ground, grow, and achieve their goals through education and mentorship. SCORE's national network of 10,000 volunteers delivers technical assistance at no charge or at very low cost. Once known as the Service Corps of Retired Executives, this volunteer organization is now recognized as SCORE, Counselors to America's Small Business. On tonight's edition of the PHOENIX File, I'll be talking with Jay Gladney and Andy Beran, leaders of the Greater Phoenix SCORE chapter, to learn how local volunteers, trainers, and mentors are giving aspiring Valley entrepreneurs a much-needed helping hand on their road to success. That's coming up next on the PHOENIX File, right here on Radio Phoenix, where the Valley comes to talk, sing, connect. Good evening, I'm Stu Turgel, your host for the PHOENIX File, a weekly news magazine that features the people and programs making a positive difference on the quality of life in the Valley of the Sun. Small business success across America is the mission of a remarkable organization known as SCORE. Since 1964, SCORE volunteers have donated their expertise in more than 600 skill areas to aid budding or established entrepreneurs. More than 9 million entrepreneurs have been mentored by SCORE or attended SCORE workshops, with hundreds of offices for face-to-face mentoring and Ask SCORE for online advice. SCORE serves the needs of today's emerging entrepreneurs. SCORE volunteers mentor and coach entrepreneurs through one-to-one business advising sessions on a full range of business topics. In the 1970s, when SCORE chapters were first formed, SCORE expanded its services to offer workshops and seminars on a variety of business issues. In 1996, SCORE ventured online and began providing small business advice via email to meet the entrepreneur's need to have service on an around-the-clock basis. Today, SCORE, once known as the Service Corps of Retired Executives, is now more appropriately recognized as SCORE, Counselors to America's Small Business. Joining me tonight to talk about SCORE are Jay Gladney, the current president of the Greater Phoenix SCORE chapter, and Andy Beran, the immediate past chapter president. Jay and Andy, I want to thank you both for being here tonight, and welcome to the PHOENIX File.
Well, thank you, Stu. Appreciate the opportunity to talk.
Good. Well, before we explore exactly how SCORE helps small businesses and entrepreneurs, I'd be interested to hear how each of you became aware of SCORE and how you decided to become involved in this organization. So why don't you share with us your path to SCORE? Andy, do you want to start?
Okay, sure. Let me give it a try. So I spent many years, over 20 years with Intel Corporation, in a variety of functional areas: finance, marketing, strategic planning, and operations. And after I retired, I started to look around for other things to do, ways to contribute back to the community. At the same time, I was getting an entrepreneurial bug of my own and started up a new business, which I was able to grow and then sell, and then invested in another business. So my experience, I realized, spanned both big business and small business, and SCORE seemed like a natural fit. So I had a couple of friends that told me about SCORE. I went down, checked it out, and was really thrilled to find that it was a community of very strong executives, some former executives, some current executives, that with a single passion to give back to the community. And that was my opportunity to join them.
And the rest is history, as they say. Jay, how did you get involved in SCORE?
Well, my career path was a lot different than Andy's. Essentially, SCORE is almost like my third career. Essentially, I'm a retired Air Force officer, and I did a little different kind of intel. Actually, my background was the intelligence career field throughout my 23 years in the Air Force. So I retired from the Pentagon about after that 23 years, stayed around the Northern Virginia area and worked for a number of IT companies, the last one of those being Oracle Corporation. Essentially was with Oracle, sort of combining my intel and intelligence, that is, just not to confuse anything, intelligence and IT background with a number of consultants who were actually providing technical services back into the intelligence community around the Beltway. So it worked out exceptionally well for me in terms of bringing my background exactly into what I was doing afterwards. I wound up here in Arizona primarily because my daughter lives in the Valley for about 10 years. We've been out here for about 6 years. We had come out to visit her a number of times, had found it a great place to be, came out to the Valley, was kind of looking around for an interesting organization in which I could use my background and talents, found SCORE, and essentially hooked up with SCORE when Andy was the president, and basically have really thoroughly enjoyed my 4.5 years so far.
That's terrific. You both have very different pathways, but you have something that you share in common. That's a love of trying to help emerging entrepreneurs really find their pathway to success. The Greater Phoenix SCORE chapter, which each of you has served as president of, is one of more than 300 SCORE chapters around the country. How long has this chapter been around? And tell us a little bit about who the members are that make up the local SCORE chapter. Is there a typical SCORE volunteer?
I actually wouldn't say that there is a sort of a typical SCORE volunteer. If you look at the range of the backgrounds of the people who are within SCORE, we all sort of have a common business background in the sense of we've been engaged either as small business owners, as Andy has, or have been senior officers in major corporations and in smaller corporations as well. So that's sort of common. But if you look at the range of the industries in which we've been involved, there's not a whole lot of commonality around that. And that actually works to the benefit of our clients, because we see clients here in the Valley who have a tremendous range of things that they're interested in doing. That allows us to kind of apply the backgrounds of our mentors to what they do. So we essentially have about 75 of those folks here in the Phoenix area that are mentors for us. And about 20% of those are not retired. You sort of mentioned at the beginning of the show that we used to be called the Service Corps Retired Executives. We sort of got rid of that name for a couple of reasons. Retired executives sounded kind of old, and we didn't want to necessarily push that mantra. And the other thing is, of course, that a number of our members are not retired. They're in fact working either full or part-time, and they still find time to donate their time, effort, and energy to helping people in the industry to build their businesses.
Well, and that's the case with Andy. You obviously are still managing a couple of businesses, and so you both have a little different version of what your day job looks like. Yours is more, Jay, focused on SCORE, and Andy is both SCORE and his own businesses. Nationally, SCORE and the U.S. Small Business Administration have an interesting strategic relationship. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about that relationship.
Sure. Let me take a shot at this. First of all, SCORE is an independent organization. All the mentors are volunteers, so we're not employees of the government and we're not directly affiliated with the government. But the SBA, or the Small Business Administration, does help us out, and it helps us with our mission. And we work in close cooperation with the Small Business Administration. So everything from, they help us with the rent on our offices. They also help us with funding some of our efforts. But most important, we share a common charter, which is to help small businesses all across the United States.
And SCORE is a nonprofit organization. Obviously, the U.S. Small Business Administration is a governmental arm of the United States government. But as a nonprofit, as a charitable organization, SCORE, as you said, depends on volunteers. It's totally volunteer. It's a total volunteer organization. And the services that you provide, while I said it at the top, I think bears repeating. The services that you provide, because Jay, you talk about client and mentors, but that when people hear the term client, they probably are not remembering that I said those services are free to them. Some of the services, some of the programs that you put on, seminars and whatnot, have a small participation fee, but the ongoing mentor relationship, that's a free service, isn't that right?
Absolutely right. The reason that we use the term mentor is we could use actually several other terms like business coaches or business advisors, but we use the term mentor because that has a long-term connotation to it. Essentially, when we engage with our clients, we're really looking to be part of their business career as they go forward. And so we're looking for the idea of being there for them. And we use the term client because we want to have a very professional relationship with our clients that come to us to give them the very best advice that we possibly can, either from our local mentors or, of course, as you mentioned, we can reach back into that 10,000 mentors that we have across the country to gain additional expertise that we may not have here in the local area.
Before the show, Andy was telling me that his area of expertise is so specialized that he gets a lot of calls from outside the Phoenix area to participate in helping in other parts of the country.
Which is a good segue to mention that our mentoring services are not only face-to-face, but also conducted on the phone and more by email or by video. So that expertise that Jay mentioned can be drawn on all across the country very easily.
That's good. I want to remind our listeners that they're welcome to join Radio Phoenix, Roosevelt Row, and Stir Up Records on the first Friday in October from 10 p.m. for the monthly First Friday Art Walk. Now expanded to Moreland Street in downtown Phoenix, First Friday features art vendors, food trucks, and live bands. Radio Phoenix will be also broadcasting live from Moreland Street. For more information, more information is available at artlinkphoenix.com. Then click on First Fridays in the top menu. Join us for First Friday, the first Friday in October. Guys, when someone wants to become a SCORE volunteer, what do you look for in their business background that makes you think that they could be helpful as a SCORE volunteer? And what do you get them prepared to do, and how do you get them ready to begin to act as a volunteer counselor or mentor?
Well, basically, we're looking for the skills and experience and a track record of success at whatever they've done in their careers that they can bring to a new business owner, or even, as Andy mentioned, we certainly work with business owners who've been working at it for some period of time and may have a successful business, but has a particular business need for counseling. Perhaps, for example, they're expanding into an area that they've not done before. So we're available for those people as well. So we're looking for that, and we're also looking for a certain amount of temperament and a willingness to share that knowledge. Not everyone necessarily who's been successful is necessarily willing to share that knowledge with others. It certainly is key for a mentor for SCORE. What we do in terms of preparing them to actually engage with clients is we take them through what we call an orientation period. We used to call that kind of training, but the reality is training doesn't really fit for the level of the backgrounds and skills that our people bring to the table as sort of table stakes. And so what we do is orient them to the way that SCORE does business, the way we work with our clients. We orient them to the tools that we use to help our clients. Takes, generally speaking, somewhere in the neighborhood of a month, perhaps up to 3. But generally speaking, people get through that relatively quickly, and they're ready to go out and help our clients.
Well, that's a very thoughtful way of approaching it, with good training and good preparation so that they can be successful in the work that they do on behalf of the clients. We're going to take a short break now, and then more of my conversation with Jay Gladney and Andy Beran of SCORE. You're listening to the Phoenix File. I'm Stu Turgel, and this is Radio Phoenix. Welcome back to the Phoenix File. I'm your host, Stu Turgel, and tonight I have in the studio my guests Jay Gladney and Andy Beran, and now more of our conversation about SCORE. Well, before we took our break, we were talking about the training that takes place for new SCORE volunteers. I was wondering how many volunteer counseling sessions members of SCORE, of this SCORE chapter, have conducted, and if you have any idea how many clients have benefited from SCORE mentoring and counseling.
Yes, we do track that actually. Since we're an SBA resource partner, we kind of, our fiscal year is mapped to the government's fiscal year. So the last numbers I actually have are for FY16, which ended the end of last September. We're just finishing up our 2017 fiscal year this month, and we'll have about the same numbers. Last fiscal year, we had about 5,000, a little over 5,000 mentoring sessions with our clients, and we engaged with about 2,000 others of our clients in the workshops that we sponsored. So our expectations are we'll serve a little over 7,000 clients over the course of this year.
That's a lot of impact when you think about the value of that counseling and mentorship that you provide. It's hard to even imagine what that would convert to if people had to go out and if they had the ability to go out and buy that kind of professional consulting services. I don't even think there's a number that you could put on it. But when you listen to those numbers, Jay and Andy, it's a huge impact that you're making on existing and potential business owners.
It absolutely is. That's how we get paid as volunteers, is to see essentially the success of the business owners that we're working with. And so we track that as we go through to understand how well they are doing in terms of avoiding some of the mistakes that we have made in our own careers.
Well, you guys didn't make any mistakes.
we made one or two.
Continue to make mistakes.
I oftentimes tell my clients that one of our jobs is to tell them where the dragons are.
Right.
So they can avoid those dragons as they're building their businesses.
That's a good image. When a small businessman or businesswoman or a would-be entrepreneur needs some help moving their enterprise forward, how do they find you, and how do they begin the process of seeking help from SCORE? How do they get in touch with you?
Well, the easiest way is through our website. Our website is Greater Phoenix, that's one word, greaterphoenix.score.org. And if you go to the website, you can quickly orient yourself and see how to contact us to make an appointment. And basically, as a new entrepreneur or an established business owner, wherever you are in your business life cycle, all you need to have is a question. If you have a question, we can get together, we can start to work on that, address the issue, and move you forward. So our goal is to, as Jay said, is to establish a ongoing relationship that may start with one question, evolve into several other questions along the way, but we're a partner for you as you go through that cycle. So again, greaterphoenix.score.org to reach us.
That's great. You said earlier that this is about establishing a long-term relationship, but on the other hand, it may be that they have a simple question that can be answered in one phone call or in one visit. Is that right?
Absolutely. Some of our interactions with clients are as simple as, where do I get an answer to this, or how do I do this, or something as straightforward as, which government agency do I need to contact? And that's fine. Any level of question, any question at all is a good question, but many of the questions that we get are much more complicated and much more in depth. And once we start to peel back the onion a little bit, we find that the question might address just only part of the issue. And as we dig a little deeper and become more familiar with the business and the issues, we uncover other things to work on.
And some relationships between client and mentor have gone on for quite a long period of time.
Years and years.
Yes, absolutely.
For years,
Yes.
literally for years. And all for free.
Absolutely. What we oftentimes see with our clients is that they'll work with us fairly intensely for a period of time, maybe several months as we're working through a problem. They'll go away and work on their businesses. Perhaps, again, it'll be months again before we see them, but that's perfectly okay with us. We understand that cycle. We welcome them back to work on the next problem or to work on the next level of the problem we originally addressed.
Now, once the contact has been made with SCORE, a prospective client approaches SCORE, what happens next? How do you match a mentor with a client, and how does the process start, and what does that relationship kind of look like and feel like?
Well, it's actually almost a triage. The client oftentimes, because of the way that we're set up here in Phoenix, they will choose their own mentor, oftentimes based on the location. We actually mentor in 24 locations across the valley in order to make it convenient for our clients. And so the job of the initial mentor with whom they engage is to somewhat triage what the client really needs. And if that mentor needs to bring in someone else to help, or actually transfer that client to another mentor who's better able to help them, that is perfectly within the morals of how we do these things.
I'm sure that every case is different. There are probably no two clients that look exactly the same any more than there are any two mentors that look the same. But is there a typical client, and how do these volunteer counseling sessions and engagements usually end? Do most clients achieve success with their goals? Do you keep a batting average when it comes to successful outcomes?
We actually do. We do track both the number of sessions that we do with clients and essentially our interactions with clients, but it's very important for us to understand whether we're actually having a positive impact. So, for example, looking back at our 2016 numbers again, since our 2017 numbers aren't finalized, we can trace our influence in the creation of 734 businesses here in the Phoenix area and created about 735 non-owner jobs as part of those businesses. So that's important to us to look at those kinds of success. We certainly look at episodic success stories of our clients. But I will say that one of the things that's important to us is that even if the engagement doesn't necessarily result in something that you would regard as a business success, what we do in engaging early on with clients, we consider a public service for people who essentially may not have the level of business background in their environment that we can bring to the table. And so even if a client comes to us and essentially decides their business idea is not ready to get off the ground yet, we consider that a victory because that client hasn't necessarily spent a lot of time, money, and energy to find that out. We've helped them to discover that they need more work on their business idea before they're ready to get rolling.
What are the biggest challenges that you face working with clients?
Oh, I think probably the biggest challenge is trying to get them to articulate the issue that they're struggling with. So I'll give you a for instance. Very often the financial part of being a business owner or being an entrepreneur is intimidating to people. And so helping a client review a financial statement, a P&L, a balance sheet, a statement of cash flow, can help them uncover perhaps certain aspects of the dynamics of the business. I'm not going to provide an answer to them in that case, but what I'm going to be able to do is help them identify the answer themselves once they understand how the dollars flow through the business. So exploring that dynamic of what's needed, what they're really looking for, and then help them uncover the answer. I would say in most cases, the client figures out the answer themselves.
I'd certainly say amen to that.
Amen to that. Look, with the time that we have left, I wonder if you could share a story or two, an example or two of the kinds of clients with whom the SCORE chapter here locally has worked, and maybe a few success stories of their involvement with SCORE so that we can put a face on what this is all about.
Yeah, we've got a couple of examples. In fact, in our chapter meeting just last week, one of the things we do is share success stories with how we're doing with clients. We were able to do that last week. I'm going to give you a couple of examples from that. One is called My Man Marketing, the market lead generation company. Been with SCORE, again, one of those long-serving clients, 9 years been engaged with SCORE. Essentially, this is that person's third business try, and they have basically learned quite a bit from those two failed attempts in the first two goes. And we essentially have gone through to build that, so that's a very important and worthwhile business at this point. Another one, for example, is a martial arts academy, which is an interesting business in that it's oriented to very small kids, preschool. Most martial arts studios tend to avoid that. And we've actually, in working with them, they have been very successful. They've tripled their profits in the last couple of years. By changing their marketing, we spend a great deal of time, since that's so core to small business or any business, helping our clients to figure out how to reach their potential customers. They've added new business segments, and so therefore we've been very successful in helping that client to build its business.
Well, those are two terrific success stories, and I'm sure there are thousands of others. Andy, tell us again, for people who want to get in touch with the SCORE chapter and try to get some help for their businesses, how they reach you.
Absolutely. All they need is a question and our website, which is Greater Phoenix, one word, greaterphoenix.score.org. And that'll take them straight to our home page, and there'll be a big button there that they can click on to make an appointment with a mentor.
Well, click the big button and get some help. It's free and it's really valuable. Jay and Andy, thanks for what you and more than 11,000 volunteers nationwide do for small businesses who turn to SCORE for free counseling and mentorship services. And thanks for being here tonight on the Phoenix File.
Thank you, Stu. Appreciate it.
Well, that's our show for this week. I want to again thank my guests tonight, Jay Gladney and Andy Beran of SCORE, Counselors to America's Small Business. Join me next Tuesday night at 6:30 when my guests will be Matt Lehrman and John Little of Social Prosperity Partners, and our conversation about civic engagement and public involvement. Until next week, thanks for listening to the Phoenix File. For Radio Phoenix, this is Stu Turgel.